Hey babe, welcome to Baseball for Girls, where baseball meets soft girl energy. I'm Shaughnessy, and here we do baseball with heart, humanity, and a little humor. So, whether you're brand new to the game or deep in your baseball era, you're in the right place. So grab something cozy and settle in, and let's get into today's episode. Let's play ball. Hey babes, welcome back to another episode of Baseball for Girls. And today we won't be doing a recap. I wanted to do an episode on a few things that confused me the first time I was watching a baseball game or whenever I was trying to learn how to watch a baseball game. So just a little bit more background on me. I started watching baseball in 2022. Which was the year that the Astros won the World Series. That's how I can remember. They played the Phillies that year, so it was a really big game because I was living in Pennsylvania at that time. So when I was in graduate school in Pennsylvania, I started watching baseball, mostly because I had always been interested in baseball, but no one around me watches baseball. I don't have any friends that are super into baseball or anything, so I never had anyone to sit down and try to teach me. So I was just watching TV, and I have Apple TV. And back in 2022, that was their first year that they started streaming games on Apple TV. Well, it used to be called Apple TV Plus, so I might say that a couple of times, but now it's just Apple TV. But they used to they still do. They still stream games on Friday nights. They started doing their Friday night baseball. So I started watching it on there. And they would have announcers that really explained the game, honestly, as things were happening. And that was super helpful for me when I was really just learning how to watch the game. Now it feels a little bit annoying because they're like explaining everything all the time, and now I understand, so I don't really watch Apple TV games anymore. But when I was first watching, definitely a very valuable resource. Apple TV as a subscription, I feel like is about $10 a month, or it probably has gone up by now, honestly, but it's not terribly expensive. But if you want to try to learn baseball through watching, I definitely recommend watching it on Apple TV Plus. I haven't watched it in a while because, like I said, it started to get really redundant and a little bit annoying. But if they still broadcast the same way, and I feel like they do have the same broadcasters on that streaming service, so I think that would be really helpful. But I was watching games on Friday nights, Friday night baseball of Apple TV Plus, Apple TV Plus at the time, whatever. And I was watching one game and they mentioned that there was another game going on. So on Apple TV, they only have 2 games on Friday nights. But the announcer was talking about another game that wasn't on Apple TV. And then I realized that baseball comes on every single day, not just Fridays. And so then I started getting way more obsessed. And honestly, I feel like the universe just kind of aligned because my apartment, so I was in graduate school at the time, and I was living in student housing, and my apartment complex decided to give us cable for free. Well, I guess not really for free. It was like the rent went up a little bit more. It was not an option. They forced us to start paying for cable, basically. And so then I was able to watch more games because I was living in Pennsylvania. There's 4 different teams that are in network that are like not blacked out or whatever. That's like a whole other discussion, like blackouts in baseball. It's like a huge thing that's going on in baseball today, and like people trying to watch games. But if you want to watch a game through the MLB TV service that they have where you can watch games, they could be blacked out if they are games that are actually near you. So you can't actually watch the team you want to pay to watch. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. I hadn't subscribed to any, MLB service at that point. But I was able to watch Baltimore Orioles games, the Philadelphia Phillies, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Washington Nationals. So the DC Washington Nationals. And so I was able to watch all those games. I kind of was rotating between all of them. And I felt like the Nationals were not that great. The Pittsburgh Pirates were not that great at that time. The Phillies would win almost every single game. And so it really wasn't that interesting for me to watch. But then the Orioles were super fun to watch because you never knew if they were going to win or lose. They always kind of seemed to come back at the end of the game. So it always just made the game super entertaining. And so then that's why I started to fall in love with the Orioles. And I started going to games because I was living near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So I was only an hour and a half away from Baltimore. And that's why they always say that part of Pennsylvania is central, even though it's not in the middle of Pennsylvania, but it's central to a lot of different places. You can get to anywhere within 4 hours. And so I started going to Baltimore Orioles games. So I would take that little commute on Sundays. I bought Sunday modified season tickets where I was able to go to games every single Sunday. Well, not every single, but every single Sunday that was at home, I was able to go to a game. So like I mentioned, I didn't really have anyone to teach me. I basically learned everything by myself. I kind of just chose it to be my little hobby. And I would try to not Google things, just try to understand it as I was watching it. And just learning new things as I was watching more games. And that ended up being super fun. Of course, sometimes I would Google things that really just didn't make any sense after trying to figure it out on my own. I did try to join this baseball Reddit thread. And the guys on there were just not very nice to me. Obviously, Reddit is not necessarily a nice place to be if you're trying to learn something. So then I just kind of gave up on that. And that's also why I wanted to create Baseball for Girls, because I want a safe space for people who just like watching the game or just want to learn more about the game. Just ask questions and try to figure things out, and we can figure things out together. There's still a bunch of things that I feel I don't know, something will happen and I'm just I have no idea what just happened, because I don't really have someone to ask right then in the middle of the game. But I still find watching the game super fun. So like I mentioned, I didn't really have anyone to teach me. I would sometimes collect a bunch of questions, and one of my friends, her husband was really into baseball. And so sometimes if we all got dinner and her husband was there, I would corner him and ask him 12 questions that I just have sitting on my phone trying to figure things out. And, guys typically enjoy talking about sports, and they always enjoy explaining, mansplaining things or whatever. So he loved it. It was great. But obviously I didn't really see him that often. So I always just, if I find someone that I think knows a lot about baseball, I usually have a question for them about something that recently happened that I was trying to figure out. And people like that. It's a nice way to have a conversation about baseball and really get to know more about the game and learn something new. So if you've ever tried to really watch a game on your own and really felt it was super confusing, you just kind of gave up, this episode is definitely for you, because today I'm going to just walk through some of the most confusing things that now kind of seem pretty simple to me. But obviously, like I mentioned, I still get pretty confused every now and again. So the first thing that really kind of threw me off was, like I mentioned, how many games are happening at once, and then how many games are in a season. So there's 162 games in a season. And I never really tried to keep up with all of them. Like I mentioned, I did have 4 different teams that I could watch on a rotation for a little while. But because there's so many games, because they play every single day, it really does give you space to leave and come back. Not any one game, at least throughout the season, is really that much more special. Baseball is a game of just accumulation. You're trying to accumulate as many wins as you can throughout the season so that you can make it to the playoffs. but really focusing on beating teams within your division so that you can be the winner of your division. So it's every single day, you don't have to watch a game. And it really just fits in with the rhythm of your life. Like, I would just put on baseball while I'm cooking dinner or like cleaning up around my house on a Saturday, and just like having it on in the background. And it really just makes the perfect background noise. And you can like tune in when something is happening and tune out when it kind of is just a little bit slower. I used to love falling, well, I still do, but I started falling asleep watching to late night West Coast games. Like I mentioned, I live on the East Coast. And so the West Coast games come on at like 10 p.m., like right when I'm about to go to bed. I like put on a Mariners game, and I also really liked watching Mariners games because their score bug is what it's called, like the little box at the bottom of the screen, or sometimes the top of the screen. I think the Chicago White Sox keep theirs at the top of the screen, if I'm not mistaken. Some teams have it at the top, but anyway, the little box that tells you the score. On theirs, sometimes they'll like pop up like these random little baseball facts. Sometimes it'll be just like a fact about the player, or sometimes it'll like randomly explain something about a play or whatever. So I always really liked watching the Mariners games, and that's also how I fell in love with the Mariners. Also, I mean, come on, Julio Rodriguez, are you kidding me? He's a phenomenon. Like, I love him. So I just love how baseball is always happening and you're never really behind, but that also makes it feel like even more of a hole or a missing piece in your life at the end of the season. So that was just something that I had to learn over time, like how many games there were and then how to fit baseball into my life. The next thing that kind of confused me is just the overall pace of the game. Sometimes it feels like the game is going really slowly, and then all of a sudden it's just like chaos. There's a lot of pauses in baseball. You know, there's mound visits, and like the pitcher might be doing a pickoff attempt. There's just like a lot of like little things that are going on. The batter might take a time out or is just like playing with their batting gloves or just like doing random stuff. But then all of a sudden, like one pitch can change everything, and like they'll hit a home run or they'll hit a single, or some batters had walked, so there's like ducks on the pond is what they would say. Like there's a guy on each base or something, and a base hit allows a runner to come in and score. There could be an error or a stolen base, or anything could happen. And then all of a sudden, like everyone's yelling and screaming and you're just like, wait, what just happened? Because baseball is a really sneaky sport. It like really depends on the tension that it builds. There's not like constant action. It's just constant pressure. And then once I understood that, that's how the game got more interesting for me, because the quiet parts aren't just like these empty moments. That's the building of the momentum for the game. The other thing that really confused me was the count. So when a batter is up at the plate, it starts off as 0-0, right? But after the first pitch, the pitcher will either throw a strike or a ball, and then the count will change to like 1-0 or 0-1. So the first number is always balls, and then the second number is always strikes. So sometimes you'll hear the announcer say like a 3-1 or 2-2, and that's what they're talking about. They're just talking about the balls and strikes. So basically a 3-1 count means that there's 3 balls and 1 strike, and the hitter is in a good spot in this kind of count because only 1 more ball and they'll be able to take first base, which is a walk. But a 0-2 count, so 0-2 count, means that there's 0 balls and 2 strikes. This is a pitcher's count, and the pitcher is in control because with 1 more strike, then the batter is out. And then once you understand the count, every pitch feels different. You'll start to see the strategy of the game. Because even if a pitcher throws a ball, that doesn't necessarily mean he threw that on accident. He could be trying to manipulate the count. He could throw a ball on purpose because he thinks that this batter is going to swing through it, and then maybe he doesn't swing, but he believes that this batter is maybe a little bit antsy and he doesn't even have to try to throw a strike. He knows if he throws a ball, this guy's just gonna swing right through it anyway. So it's like you learn how different pitchers like to approach each batter, which is super interesting. And it just makes the game like so much more fun to watch. I'm definitely a pitcher's girl. I love pitchers and like trying to understand pitch sequencing and stuff like that. It's super interesting, but it definitely was super confusing at first. And while we're on pitchers, the next thing that's that was kind of confusing to me was like, why does the pitcher always kind of nod or shake his head before giving a pitch? Like for a while, I was just always like, at first I was only watching, a couple of games, and I thought that maybe this just one particular pitcher just, I don't know, he just needed to shake or something before throwing a pitch. But then I realized like all the pitchers were doing that. And I forget how I figured it out, but basically when a pitcher is like nodding, he's trying to say yes to the catcher, because the catcher and the pitcher are in constant communication. You wouldn't know it because they're so far away from each other. But now the pitcher and the catcher have this device called the PitchCom, so a pitch communicator or communications or something. I just know it's PitchCom. I don't know if it's communicator, communication, something like that. And basically the catcher has like these little buttons on his arm, and he like presses a button and it like makes a noise in the pitcher's ear. I actually don't know. I think every team has it set up slightly different. Like maybe some of them have words, but I think some of them are just like beeps, or I don't know. But they're communicating via that. And so you'll see the pitcher like nod his head saying, yes, like I agree with that pitch. Before pitch comms, like the catcher would just be like showing like little hand symbols or like hand signs to tell the pitcher which pitch he thinks he should throw. Because most of the time, the catcher is the one who's calling the pitchers, telling the pitcher which pitch to throw. Every now and then, you'll have a pitcher who likes to call his own games. That's kind of how they phrase it, which basically means the pitcher is the one that's telling the catcher what he's about to throw. So it took me a while to figure that out, where I was just like, why do they keep doing that? But yeah, so they're trying to communicate with their catcher. And then I was also wondering, like, why does a pitcher get taken out of the game, and how do they even decide when to take them out? It always felt so random to me. But then I realized usually a pitcher is being taken out of the game because he's not pitching very well. That's definitely a reason to take him out. But the pitcher could also be doing pretty well, but the manager will take him out because of his pitch count maybe, or they're worried about the pitcher getting fatigued or getting injured. Maybe the next batter up, they don't think that this pitcher is a good matchup for him, and a different pitcher would be a better option. Or maybe he's just been in the game for too long and they need to take him out anyway. So it really is a strategy thing, whether or not they take out a pitcher in a game. But I think I've mentioned it a little bit before. There's starting pitchers, relief pitchers, and then a closing pitcher. So your starting pitcher is obviously the one that starts the game. You want him to go into the game as long as possible. Right now, typically your starting pitcher is staying in the game between 5 to 7 innings. 5 innings gets you qualified for a win and a quality start, while going deeper into the game is even better, and it helps you with your candidacy to be a Cy Young Award winner. The more innings you pitch, the better you'll be statistically. That's also why I really love baseball, is because there's so much math. Even though I'm not really a math girly, I do appreciate the art of math. And just realizing all the different statistics and like the trajectories of hitting the pitch and blah, 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 blah. Like all those things are super interesting to me. Like there's so much math. And so they're looking at maybe the pitcher's numbers and they're like, yeah, no, we want to take this guy out. But statistically, the pitcher is better off pitching more innings in case they have like a really high ERA or earned run average. So they've had a lot of batters that scored while they were pitching. So that's obviously not good. The main job of the pitcher is to get the batter out. So anyway, sometimes they'll just take him out because they know that the next pitcher needs to come up anyway. This guy's been in for 6 innings and we should just switch to our relief pitcher. And so the relief pitchers are in what's called the bullpen. and they're just like sitting in the very back. They're just like chilling back there until they get a call saying that somebody needs to like start warming up because it's going to be their turn. It's kind of funny. So those pitchers are relief pitchers. And then you have your closing pitcher, which is also technically a relief pitcher because they will come in after a relief pitcher has been in. And they usually just pitch like the ninth inning or maybe like the last out of the eighth inning. They don't usually get more than 5 outs, usually. Typically, your closer is a 3-out guy just to close the game out and make sure that you secure the win. And so understanding how that was being decided and like why a manager would take a pitcher out of the game also made it a lot more fun to watch, because if like a pitcher's not doing very well, you're like, okay, where's the manager? Can you take this guy out, please? He's not having a great day. Or if it's, your opposing team and you see the manager coming out and you're like, yeah, it's about time. You need to take this guy out because we're about to win this game if you don't. But sometimes they'll just go up, like a manager will just go up and have a mound visit, and nobody really knows what they talk about at mound visits. Even like when they're being interviewed by like a talk show person and the talk show person's like, oh, like, what did you tell him at the mound? They'll be like really like dodgy about the question. Like, I mean, there's probably someone who's said it, like actually what they might have said. They kind of just give like a vague answer. But those mound visits are usually trying to like help encourage the pitcher or like let him know like you're about to be taken out anyway. Just try to get this guy out, like we're waiting for someone else to warm up. They're just having like a quick conversation or like trying to go over, okay, this is how you should attack this next batter. He's been doing really well, so you want to do XYZ. Like they're just trying to gum up and give them some quick pointers. Another thing that really confused me were at-bats. So a batter can come up to the plate multiple times, and not every plate appearance counts as an at-bat. I'm going to have an episode soon where I explain a lot of the vocabulary with baseball. I recorded an episode, but I don't really like it. So I'm having to like redo it, but you will be getting an episode soon where I explain the count for plate appearances. Basically, a plate appearance is every time a hitter comes up to bat, like no matter what happens, like that is a plate appearance. But an at bat only counts if certain things happen. So if the batter gets a hit, a strikeout, a ground out, or a fly out. But if a hitter comes up and he walks or he's hit by the pitch or he does a sacrifice fly, that does not count as an at bat. So sometimes during the game, like it'll be the second time through the order, which just means the second time they're going through all 9 so there's 9 positions. So every single person's going to go up who have a plate appearance. And so once they get through the order once, so they go through the first 9, then they go through the 9 again, whatever. So a player will go up to have a plate appearance usually at least 3 times within a game. So a player will come up for like their second or third plate appearance, and the announcer will say something like, oh, he's 0 for 3 today or something. And I was just like, what does that even mean? But basically, that just means that out of the 3 times or chances that he had at his plate appearances, he did not have a hit, he struck out, grounded out, or flied out. So, for example, if the announcer says something like he's 1 for 2, but he came to the plate 4 times, so being 1 for 2 means maybe he had a single at his first at-bat, maybe the next 2 times he walked, and then the fourth at-bat he struck out. So that would make him 1 for 2. So out of the 4 times he came to the plate, only 2 of them counted because he got a single and a strikeout. Walks do not count as an at-bat. They just make it kind of confusing because of statistics. So the plate appearances don't go towards their statistics for their batting average. The batting average is really just the at-bats. So that does make a difference as well. I won't get into the weeds about how they calculate batting averages in this episode, but that all those like kind of different statistical things was kind of confusing to me. And then trying to understand why they're keeping track of plate appearances versus an at bat, and like, why does it even matter? Like, why can't you just say he's 2 for 4? Like, no, he is only 1 for 2 because some of those plate appearances didn't count. Like, they make it so complicated, and I honestly love that about baseball. It's like the most randomly complicated sport. And it's just so intricate, and I love that. And then just a last one, like, how do people keep score? Like, I realized that for baseball, people like to keep score. I have a couple of score books that I've gotten over the years. I love keeping score for a game. I try to do it at least a couple of times a season because it's just so fun. And it really keeps you in the game. It honestly makes the game go by too fast for me because I guess I'm paying attention too much. So I don't really do it every single time. But one of my favorite memories of a baseball game that I went to a Mariners versus Orioles game, so at the Orioles Stadium. And it ended up being like a 3.5 hour rain delay. So like everybody pretty much left. I stayed, even though I had a pretty far drive to get back home. That game was supposed to start at 4 p.m. So then it just started at 7, which is like not really terrible. A lot of the times the games start at 7 anyway. So then I was able to keep score in my brand new scorecard that I had gotten for my birthday. And it was just such a nice, relaxing thing. Honestly, I don't remember who won that game, but I do remember Julio Rodriguez hit a home run. And it was just so fun, and I loved it so much. And I could just like kick my heels up because no one else was sitting in my section anymore. Everyone had went home. It was such a nice game. Baseball is just so good because even though we do want more people to get involved in the sport, sure, but a lot of the times there's not anybody there. You can really just like sit wherever you want. You can like relax and just have a nice time and watch the game and enjoy the atmosphere. And so I figured out how to keep score just using my score book. So the score book that I bought just tells you exactly how to do it. I think all score books do. I've been thinking about creating my own score book and like making it in a way that makes it easier for me to keep score. And so keep an eye out for that whenever I finish making that. But if you just buy a random score book, it definitely tells you exactly how to use it. So I loved that. So those are the few things that really confused me when I first started watching baseball. And now, honestly, like I pretty much said with all of them, like all of these things are now things that I love about the game. It just makes it so much more interesting to watch. Because every time you understand another thing, it just makes the game so much more fun. And really understanding it is the best way to really enjoy it. So if baseball still confuses you, you're not bad at watching it. You're just at the beginning, and beginnings are always allowed to be messy. Baseball has so much patience. It requires so much patience out of you. And so learning about it takes patience as well. And that is the best way to honor the game and get the most out of it. So happy watching. Thank you for hanging out with me in the softest corner of sports media. And I hope you come back for another episode. I'll be doing recaps throughout the season. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, please leave a review, rate, share it with a friend that you think might also enjoy this and learn something from it. If there's anything that you found confusing about baseball when you were starting to watch it or as you're starting to watch it, let me know. Send me a DM, comment on some of my Instagram posts. You can send me fan mail on podcasts, and I'd love to address any questions that you might have, even if I have to look it up myself, because it's really a learning game. There's so much to learn about it, and it takes such a long time to get the hang of it. But once you do, you're going to fall in love with it just like I did. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys later. Bye. Oh my gosh, wait. Hey babes, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Baseball for Girls. I probably forgot to plug the things that I'm doing, including my Instagram, so I just wanted to come back here and plug all my little things really quick. So my Instagram is baseball, 4 girls _. and I just kind of post on there whenever I upload a new episode. I also have a baseball score tracker. It has about 40 weeks in it, and it has like some notes sections so that you can also keep track of games throughout the week. I use it for Major League Baseball games, but you can also use it for minor league games, your kids' games, your friends that are playing baseball, whatever. It's really just a nice way to keep track of all the games and the scores from each game, especially since baseball is typically played in series. So you should check that out. It's just called Baseball Score Log, and it can be found on Amazon, and it's only $9.99. I also include how I personally keep track of games as a little bit of an instruction guide on the first couple of pages, so you can keep score like the same way that I do. Also, I am in the process of writing a ebook. So it'll be a baseball for beginners ebook that I have been working on for the past couple of weeks. It'll just kind of walk through the rules of the game, how to watch it for the first time, and just give you a general idea for how to understand baseball from a very, very basic perspective. So I'll definitely let y'all know whenever that is available. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.